Okay, this week's Parshat Achareimot Kedoshim, and I want to share with you a very, very famous Ramban. In the beginning of Parshat Kedoshim, the Torah tells us, "Daber el kol hadas b'nei Yisrael v'amart alehem kedoshim tiyu, ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokeichem." So the Torah tells us that we have a mission to be kadosh. Rashi points out, what does kedoshim tiyu mean? So Rashi says that we should be prushim min ha'arayos u'min ha'avera. A person should be porous, should set himself apart, distance himself from arayos. Indeed, the prior parsha, before Kedoshim, Achareimot deals with arayos. And min ha'avera, separate yourself, distance yourself, be a porous from arayos and from avera. The Ramban says something very different, very, very famous Ramban. The Ramban says that what does Kedoshim to you mean? We should be living our lives with an agenda of Kedusha. And that means Kadesh es atzmecha b'mutar lach. There are many things that are mutar to us. And the Torah allows us to do many things, but if one does them in an excessive fashion, a person spends all day eating, he makes brachos, he benches, but he's eating all day, he's engaging in a papagayo's experience, and that's what it's all about for him. So good, he might not be doing a single avera, he might not be doing a single sin. He makes his brachos, Rishona and Achrona. But he's living a life of decadence, he's living a life that's fundamentally flawed, a life that's devoid of Kedoshim Tiyum. And really what the Ramban says, it's something to live by, and he says this a few times throughout the Chumash, is that the Torah cannot legislate every single area of our lives. The Torah legislates and gives us a set of halachos, but from those halachos we are supposed to derive and divine not just a letter of the law, but a spirit of what Yahadus is all about, a spirit of what halacha is all about, a spirit of what it means to live the life of a Jew. And therefore, when it comes to our relationship bein adam lemakom, kedoshim tiyu. Even if something is technically mutter, but there's a mitzvahs aseh de orais of kedoshim tiyu that tells us, be a kadosh, live your life with a sense of kedusha. And therefore, even though yes, it's mutter to engage in achila v'shtia all day long, it's mutter to drink. But is that in consonance with a life of Kedusha? And therefore there's a mitzvahs aseh. The Torah cannot cover every single case. And therefore there's a mitzvah aseh to live your life endowed with that sense of Kedusha. Everyone has on his own level. It's a subjective kind of idea. What might be right for Reuven is not necessarily right for Shimon, but there's an overarching principle. You might call it the spirit of the law, and it is the spirit of the law, but the spirit of the law, this spirit of the law is the law. And the spirit of the law now becomes embedded into the law itself to live a life of Kedusha. That's the mitzvah of Kedoshim Tiyu. I say that the Ramban says this idea in a number of different places. You take a look in Parshas Emor. There the Torah says Shabbos is supposed to be a day of Shabboson. And the Ramban has a lengthy discussion. What does it mean, Shabboson? Shabbos and Yontif are days of Shabboson. So Ramban explains that a person can go through his entire Shabbos experience and not violate a single Isser D'Oraisa. He can be in work and doing business and transferring, buying and selling all day long, no Isser D'Oraisa violated, and not have a day of Shabbos, not have experienced the mitzvah of Shabboson. Understand that Shabbos, there's letters of the law, but then there's an atmosphere. The letter of the law is there to create a certain atmosphere, the Kedusha of Shabbos. That's the mitzvah of Shabboson. And the Ramban says it's a mitzvah, mitzvah aseh, one of the 613. And therefore, the idea is that the mitzvah of Shabboson says that the spirit of the law becomes the halacha, and therefore, and the Navi developed it further. Shalote diburcha b'Shabbos ke diburcha b'chol, shalote hiluchach b'Shabbos ke hiluchach b'chol. If a person engages in his entire Shabbos experience, not violating any halachos, but it's a very chol-like experience. You have these new inventions that are coming out. They just are now playing up the kosher switch. And all these haskamas, whether the haskamas are good or not, valid or not, in my mind it violates something much more profound, much more fundamental. Once you have the kosher switch, and now not only can you turn on lights, but you can turn on TVs and air conditioners and your appliances and everything's working. Now it's a day of chol. You've not just, it's not the pshat that I'm keeping Shabbos, but it's not Shabbosdik. When it's not Shabbosdik, it's not Shabbos. That's the mitzvah of Shabboson. Finally, the Ramban has this as well when it comes to mitzvahs bein adam l'chavero. When it comes to mitzvahs bein adam l'chavero, we have a lot of laws in Parshas Mishpatim, how you treat your neighbor not to encroach, not to masik vul, not to damage his property, and what are the consequences if you do. But then there's an overarching mitzvah called Parshas V'eschanan Perek Vav Pasuk Yudches Va'asisa Hayosher V'hatov Be'enei Hashem. Do that which is righteous, do that which is good. We can't cover every single case. There's too many details, too many cases that the Torah cannot anticipate. But divine understand from the letter of the law what the spirit of the law is, what the Ratzon HaTorah is, what the Ratzon Hashem is. V'asisa hayasher v'atov, do that which is right to your neighbor. Technically it might be mutter, yeah, but is it tov? Is it yashar? The Ramban explains in these three different areas the same idea. Kedoshim tiyu, that should be an overarching vision of how you live your life. Shabbosam, your Shabbos experience is not just about avoiding the obstacles of malachos, but it's supposed to be an uplifted day of Kedusha, of Shabbos. Your relationships ben adam lechavero, v'asisa hayosher v'atov, should be relationships of yashrus, of righteousness, of goodness. That's the overarching principle that should guide it. It's not just the spirit of the law, but the spirit of the law becomes embedded and part of the law itself.